Hi, my name is Lila from Levine Editorial, and in this video, we're going to be talking about working with beta readers. A beta reader is someone who reads later drafts of your manuscript and gives you feedback from a reader's perspective. They are your ideal audience, and they read regularly in the genre you write. A beta reader does not have to be an editor, does not have to be a writer, does not have to be good at spelling and grammar, and does not have to have any professional qualifications. A good beta reader is reliable. They'll finish the book by the date you agreed upon, and if they can't, they'll let you know as soon as possible. A good beta reader is also willing and excited to read your story. They are honest. They're going to give you real feedback. They're not going to sugarcoat it. And they're compassionate. So they know how to give constructive criticism. You can use beta readers before a developmental edit. That way, you know if you want to make any big changes before paying for a developmental editor. You can also use beta readers after a developmental edit just to reconfirm that the changes you and your developmental editor made are great for the average reader, for your ideal reader. A third option is to use beta readers after a line edit or a copy edit, just as kind of like a last check of the story. I think this is probably the least helpful time, but it couldn't hurt, and some people like to do that. You may have also heard of alpha readers, and I'm just going to briefly describe what an alpha reader is. It's usually someone who not only reads in your genre, but writes in your genre, so fellow writer, and they'll often read even earlier versions of your manuscript. So maybe while you're still finishing, while you're still doing that first draft, they will help you, give you some ideas, or just let you know what they think as a fellow writer in that same genre. Can you use friends and family as your beta readers? Sure. There are pros and cons to this. The pros are that they're easy to find. You know their personality and their background and their likes and dislikes. So if they have a certain piece of feedback that you disagree with, you might know why they're saying that specific thing. It makes it a little easier to understand their feedback. They also might be more likely to read it. The cons, though, are that they might be less likely to read it. They know that you're not paying them, and they're not in any sort of contract, and you already know them and love them. So if they don't have time to finish it, no big deal, right? They also might be less likely to give you negative feedback or specific feedback. If you already have a little or a big following on a social media platform, you can always put out a request for beta readers on there. You can check Goodreads, Instagram, Reddit, and Facebook. There are often groups for beta readers within each of these communities. On Instagram, you can search #beta readers. There are a lot of readers out there who enjoy beta reading and will do it for free. There are also beta readers on Fiverr and Upwork. Just make sure you check their reviews and get clear on exactly what it is that they'll be offering. You can also check betareader.io and Scribophile. And on betabooks.co, you can manage your beta reader feedback, which is pretty cool. And of course, if you see someone reading a book you love in the genre you're writing out in the wild, ask them if they could be a beta reader, if they'd like to. You might find people like this at book clubs, bookstores, author signings, book fairs, libraries, or at the park or the doctor's office waiting room. You never know. Some editors also offer beta reading as a service. Just know that when you hire an editor to beta read for you, they are going to be taking their editor's hat off and giving you feedback just from a reader's perspective, which also means the service will be at usually should be at a much lower cost than their other editing services. Make sure they're also a regular reader of your genre. Thespunyarn.com is a pretty cool service where they offer beta reading for a fee, and they match your manuscript to 3 different beta readers based on questions that you answer for them. And then they give you a 30+ page report. I think it takes about a month. So you might want to check out. It's thespunyarn.com. Expect each reader to have their own pace of reading. Everyone has different amounts of free time, so you can't always expect your beta reader, especially if you're not paying them, to have it done within a few days. Also, you should be expecting some sort of reader report if you're paying for beta reading. This report might be anywhere from 2 to 5 pages long. It might be longer. They can also sometimes put comments in the manuscript itself. I do that. I like to kind of give real-time feedback. So at this part, this is what I'm feeling right now, or oh my gosh, this part is so exciting, or this part's a little slow for me. You can expect to pay up to $30 per 10,000 words. That's on the very high end. Beta reading is a pretty cheap service. And like I said, you can also find beta readers for free. So if you can't afford that on top of editing, don't worry. You can find beta readers for free. The thing about paid beta readers is just it's slightly more reliable, and just you might get more specific feedback, more helpful feedback. But that's not always the case. There are some fabulous beta readers out there who just love reading and do this as a hobby. Your beta readers should point out what they like and what they didn't like. And when they do, they should be able to give some sort of explanation for why or not they liked something. For example, I lost interest at this part because this conversation felt really slow. They seem to say the same things over and over. That might be a note that your beta reader gives you, and that is fine. They're probably not going to be telling you or suggesting ways to fix that issue, but they should be able to explain why they feel the way they do about something. Your beta reader should focus on the story. Yes, they might find missing words, typos here and there, but the main function of a beta reader is to tell you how they feel about the story, tell you if they think it's a good story or not, and why. So if you want someone to find typos and to make sure the manuscript looks polished, you're looking for a copy editor or a proofreader. It's good to get multiple perspectives because, of course, every reader is different. So even though a reader regularly reads, say you write women's fiction, they regularly read women's fiction, of course, they're not going to like every well-written women's fiction book out there. So they might not like yours, but your book might be fine. So that's why it's important to get multiple perspectives. And then what you can do is if 2 or 3 or 4 of your beta readers all say the same thing about a certain part of your manuscript, then you know for sure that that's something you want to look at and consider revising. Make sure you agree on a completion date before you start. That way you know how long it's going to take and when you can expect their feedback. Creating a specific list of questions for your beta readers to answer, in addition to the usual stuff, is very helpful because then you can have them focus on the things you're most concerned about for your story. You might ask questions like, what was your favorite and least favorite part, chapter, character, and why? Always remember the why. Were there any parts that felt boring or too slow? Which parts? What do you think made you feel bored? Do you have any unanswered questions after reading the whole thing? Was the ending satisfying? Why or why not? Did anything confuse you? Was everything believable? Character motivation, world building, plot twists, etc. So those are just examples. You can choose whatever you want to ask them. And then they should also be giving you some general feedback on pacing, characters, setting, the dialogue. Ask your beta readers to leave comments in the manuscript when they're feeling a strong emotion or when they have questions. Also, ask them to leave a comment in the manuscript when they've had to reread a sentence 2 or 3 times, or a paragraph or a whole section where they just feel very confused. That would be helpful because then you know if multiple readers point out the same sentence or paragraph, you definitely know that it needs to be revised. Ask them to give specific feedback. So, just like I said earlier, the things that you're most concerned about with your story, that's what you want to make sure that they're going to answer those questions. So, for example, I'd love for you to pay extra attention to chapter 9 and let me know what you think about the murderer reveal. This will give you exactly what you need to know. So don't be afraid to ask them to answer those very specific questions. As you can see, beta readers can really help you strengthen your manuscript for little to no cost before you move on to the professional editors or in between rounds of editing.